This is Abe Friedtanzer from Awards Buzz, and I'm very excited to be speaking with Ondi Timoner about All God's Children and the In Between. How are you today?
I'm good. How are you doing, Abe?
Good, good. I really wanted to check out your work here after seeing Last Flight Home, and I'm just very intrigued by what is enough to make you want to make a documentary? Like, what subjects most compel you?
What a great question. I think usually when it's something that I feel like an audience hasn't seen before. In both cases, in the in between, which is, INN between, I read about it in the LA Times. It's like an inn for the homeless. I'm thinking, what? A hospice for the homeless. What a concept. And my mom had cut the article out for me. I was in the middle of touring with Last Flight Home, and I thought, if this place is as cozy as an inn, and it's not really like feeling cold and clinical, I think we should probably make at least a short film in there. And that's usually how someone like me gets started, lying to myself saying it'll be a short. So we went by there. We made the barometer cats and dogs, if they have cats and dogs. So we asked for permission. They were like, sure, come along. So we went in there with cameras rolling on our way to Sundance like 2 years ago or something. And I couldn't believe it. There was like this cross-eyed dog named Boo Boo, and there was this cat riding around on the shoulders of this death doula who had been in there for hospice with like 10% chance to live, and then she recovered. And then she had this way of helping other people pass. So they certified her as a death doula, and now she's like the resident death doula, and her cat can tell when people are dying and goes to them. So there was all this like, wow, this is an amazing place. It just had this feeling to it, which is like, community and love and safety and 3 meals a day and like basic human dignity that everyone should have. And there was some kind of hope. Like, so that's what I think attracted me to it, was there was this hope of um, seeing people who were homeless, but they're not homeless now. So the stigma that we have of like, well, I don't know what to do about this. I don't know how to help it. That's just not there with this. And I've never seen a film like that. So I was immediately like, this is something new that I could present that would be eye-opening. But then as we're filming it, people's symptoms are reversing. I'm realizing, oh my God, miracles are happening here because their bodies were so used to decades of stress. And now that they don't have that stress, the symptoms that put them on hospice are actually in some cases reversing. So I just thought this is an incredible film. It was too much to put in a short, so we made a short feature that's 70 minutes long, and it's actually playing Oberlin College for Parents Weekend at the Apollo Theater at Oberlin, which is a cool, really cool, big, huge old theater, and premiered a few weeks ago. And then All God's Children is, you know, I started filming my sister because I just felt like she was getting arrested all the time for throwing her body on the line, even though she's like running and leading the largest Reform synagogue in Brooklyn, and she's Senator Schumer's rabbi. She's meanwhile, I would land in New York with lunch plans and find out she was in jail because she was like holding open an Amazon store because they were providing, cloud services for ICE, or she was arrested in Washington for lying down in the rotunda with the Dreamers, or leading rabbi protests in front of Trump Towers. And it was just getting to be where I was like, I usually focus on these men, and it hasn't been by choice, but it's just been men who kind of push the boundaries and can't help but do what they do. I tend to make films about people who push the limits a lot, because I want to inspire other people to draw outside the lines. And I felt the same way about my sister. I thought, I should make a movie about my sister. So it started with I started calling it Rebel Rabbi, which I still think is a great title. And I was like, maybe I can, I don't know, work that in somehow, but I didn't end up. So it'll live on your show, Abe. But anyway, it was then when I was filming Rebel Rabbi that she sat down 5 years ago in November of 2019 and had her first meeting with Reverend Dr. Robert Waterman about trying to heal their communities and solve racism and anti-Semitism by becoming family, maybe, or worshiping together. They were trying to figure out how to do it. And I knew from growing up in Miami with Rachel, there was so much segregation still in the 70s. And I just felt like here she was, she has so much responsibility on her plate, so many just Jewish oriented issues to take on, especially with rising anti-Semitism and all of that. Here she is trying to solve racism, and trying to figure it out. And I understood that because we had grown up in this racist community. And both of us, my father, as you probably know from Last Flight Home, had a stroke by an accident when his neck was cracked in a massage when she was 11, I was 9. And we saw sort of also the stigma against disability happening there, but also, you know, we had two different people come and take care of us who were Black, who helped my parents out. And one of them is like a mother to us to this day. She's still so deeply involved in our family. And I think it just was always Rachel's number one dream. And I felt like that was really awesome that it was. But it was about, again, trying to, as a filmmaker, really balance the story between the Black perspective and the white perspective, the Jewish perspective and the Christian perspective. And, what it is like in Park Slope and Bed-Stuy, which are like next to each other, basically on top of each other, but totally different worlds. And so that was the challenge of All God's Children, which I'd say was probably up there with the biggest challenges of my entire career. So to be able to premiere it in 10 days is pretty exciting. And the fact that both congregations are feeling good about it is also, thank God, really exciting because it was very tumultuous
Yeah.
partnership for a long time. And I didn't know if we'd have a film and I didn't know if we'd have a happy ending and all of that. But it's, I think, emerged as a model of dialogue and partnership across all difference. It's like very timely right now. So happy about it.
There's so much. I mean,
A
I have so many different things I
long-winded
want to ask.
answer. I'm sorry for my
No,
long-winded.
it's great. I just want to make sure to come back to everything, but let's start with All God's Children because I think an interesting part for me is, getting to the idea of Jesus, which is something that's, so important, to the Christian community and stands so much against Judaism, especially the discussion of like a Jew for Jesus, where they're like, well, that is a Jew, but that's not. It's so interesting, that kind of thing. Also, the idea of by doing so much together that their religious practices in some ways get diluted because they're not doing their most authentic observance. Did you run into anyone sort of pushing back against that the idea of cooperating with people who weren't part of their faith might take away from their religious experience?
100%. I mean, it was just, you see it right off the bat with, I mean, the Jews for Jesus conversation is hilarious and it's such important comic relief right there on their first meeting. And I think humor is so important. And there are some really awesome laugh out loud moments with just how Jesus Mountain, Jesus Mountain. It's like, I feel like they go up Jesus Mountain, they come down Jesus Mountain, and then they finally go around Jesus Mountain because there's, when I summed up the film for people over these many years, I'd be like, yeah, I think Jesus is the problem, like, and it just feels so funny to say that because Jesus was a great guy. So it's just kind of like, why is Jesus a problem? But Jesus is a problem. And waving a Jesus flag in a temple is problematic to the congregants, possibly. And so, but then that's part of their faith. So, as Reverend Waterman says in the film, you invite us in, but not so much. You don't really accept who we are. Um, this was actually not easy to solve, and it was something that created a lot of drama. I'd say very good verite. If you have to, I mean, the Jesus flag, as we call it, was just the appetizer for Easter. But at the end of the day, I think the promise not to walk away is really the core takeaway here. We are creating a discussion guide that will go with the film because it is such a film that makes everyone's emotions just go. It just really gets the audience going. I did a test screening at a festival this summer and people were like screaming. And that's when I realized, oh my God, I better have a discussion guide that people can really hold on to of like what are the best practices for doing this. And also I think it's a model that really can spread, which is very exciting prospect. But yeah, I think part of it is realizing, we as the Christians really want to spread the word of Jesus, right? And the Jewish people really want to share how much they love, their Passover traditions or the story of Moses or, and these are stories that they hold sacred, and both groups hold these stories sacred. I come from it as a very like a very secular person generally. I'm a spiritual but not religious. I go to temple when I'm in New York because I love my sister's sermons and she's amazing. So I'm a big Rachel fan, so I do it for that. And I love the Jewish people, and I'm very much Jewish in terms of like, count me in. If there's going to be a Nazi anything, I will be on the front lines fighting it and not hiding. And in fact, I'm making a film about the Nazis right now. So for all of that, but I just don't, I just have always felt like religion is the source of war and conflict. And so it's really interesting to see how that could happen here and kind of does happen here, and how they turn it into a source of peace and expansion and a new family and actually political change. Like by the end of it, political change. So these two groups, which have faced so much persecution, and there's no comparing to the Black experience in America, not even with the Holocaust. There's no comparing to slavery in America. And Rachel would be the first to say that. But they both had such subjugation and murder and, you know, imprisonment and everything for being who they are, and for racism and for anti-Semitism, and so, and just are the subject of like hate groups. And so to have them get to a place of not just superficial partnership, but like truly showing up for each other no matter what because they love each other is, I think, pretty incredible. I watched it the other night again for the 5-1 mix, and I just felt so good. It's so feel good by the end, you know. But it takes a bit to get there, a little bit of drama to get there, for sure.
I think the important thing that also we come to realize in that is that we all have our own faiths for a reason. And the thing that is holding a lot of people back is the worry that there's something's going to be taken away, that, Jesus, it might be a, harbinger of like, forced conversion and other like that is interesting to me. And I think there's something very universal about it, that we want to be able to understand and appreciate and love each other, but we're not trying to all come together to have one faith.
It took years for them to get to that, Abe.
Right.
Years,
Yeah.
I mean, because it just is part of their passion as people who are involved in their, respective congregations and in their faith, for both of them to want to share the beauty and joy of their faith with each other. But as Rabbi Steph Colin says in the film, we're not looking for these traditions to change. They're important to the Jewish people. These aren't traditions that we're going to take away. And as Reverend Waterman says, I'm happy to have the shofar, but not to have my people start to blow the shofar. It's, can we just live and let live, but can we be there and can we appreciate each other and not be threatened? And it's challenging, but they've managed to do it. And I don't think anybody, and I think another thing Rabbi Steph Colin said that's one of my favorite lines in the film is that policies can be changed, but what these people have experienced because they've worked through it. And Reverend says that too. He says, once we get it, they can't take that away from us. And Rabbi Steph says, policies can be changed, but this can't be undone. And I think especially for the kids that you see singing together on Passover, and the choir that's going to perform after our world premiere, that the music that they make together, they can agree on that. I mean, they're singing Christian songs, they're singing in Hebrew. It's just unbelievable. It's really unbelievable. And it's what the world needs right now, I think, more than ever. So,
Absolutely. Well, I
yeah.
sought out both of these films because I knew that you had made them. Obviously, Last Flight Home, you're a much bigger, part of it just in terms of on-screen or, intimate relationship. I wasn't aware, looking back at your credits, that you had made Maplethorpe. And I am curious if you'd like to return to narrative features anytime in the future, and if so, what you'd like to focus on.
Yeah, I'm actually involved in a film that I don't think it's been announced yet, but I'm actively writing for some really great producers here in Hollywood to direct, attached to direct the film, which is supposed to shoot in Ireland next year. And the film that I referred to that's shooting in Germany and Poland and Italy is about the Nazis, is also very deeply scripted work that like recrees and all of that, working with a wonderful DP out of the scripted world and shooting alongside her. And we're both making it absolutely gorgeous. I'm shooting a lot of Super 8 for that. And I don't know if you know Maplethorpe starring Matt Smith. There's a director's cut you should see. That's the one you should see. And in it, it's all shot on Super 16 and Super 8 millimeter film. And I shot all the Super 8. And so I continue to do that with this Nazi film. But also, Last Flight Home, those pages you saw on his bed are the script I've been writing about the airline and the stroke for 10 years. And then when we went through the journey we went through as a family to send him off to his next adventure, that was so profound. I didn't mean to make a documentary. I was filming it for my own, just to survive it and to not forget a single word he said. I ended up thinking what we did as a family and the way we came together was so important for other families to see because we all lose our loved ones. And we really don't talk about it in our society very much. And everyone's in the process of that somehow. They're either facing their own death or they're dealing with other people that they love or care about that are terminally ill, or, it happens to all of us. So I felt it was incumbent upon us to pay it forward as a family and share our experience. And that's why we made the documentary. Um, but the scripted version is really now framed with that profound journey. So that's why I haven't gone forward and made it just yet. Also, scripted films take forever to get made, but the script is something that I'm very close to finishing now. That really begins in the world of the documentary that you saw, but spends most of the time in the 70s and 80s with the rise and fall of Air Florida and the stroke and its impact on the family. And then ultimately back again with dad in his final days feeling like a failure because he lost his money. And as you know from the Vidui and all of that, sort of It's a Wonderful Life, for lack of a better comparison. So very, very excited about that scripted film. And the answer is a big, all caps, yes, Abe. I am going back into scripted for sure. And that is my life dream, that film particularly, which we call Last Flight Home now, the scripted version. So
Well, I'm glad to hear you're so busy. I think we need to schedule a few more interviews because I feel like we still barely got into everything. But I wish you plenty of luck at Doc NYC, Woodstock, and everything. And looking forward to seeing everything come to light.
thank you so much. I really appreciate it, Abe.